and welcome to Footyplus, brought to you by Toyota. Today we're at Victoria Park to bring you another show full of all things South Australian sport. Coming up on this episode, meet the drag racing champion who's burning up the track in the United States.
I gravitated toward drag racing just because of the sheer power.
And find out what it's like to be an AFL umpire.
I've copped a few over the time, asking where my mum is and if I got my library cards.
Once upon a time, they simply helped players negotiate contracts with their clubs. But these days, player agents are the movers and shakers of the footy world. And for these guys, there is no off-season, as Footyplus found out when we caught up with two of the best.
Risky decision to trade a possible #1 draft pick.
Will they trade one of those guys out?
Could be worth as much as 1.3 to 1.5 million a season.
He's a certainty to be elsewhere next year, the way I read it.
The AFL season's only at the halfway mark, but agents are already well advanced in their plans for a frantic off-season of drafts, free agency and a coaching merry-go-round that's expected to go into overdrive.
A player agent's role now is a lot more diverse.
As the chief executive of TLA Australia, Collingwood Premiership player Craig Kelly and his team will be pulling the strings. His agents represent about a third of the AFL's players.
So they're being like a recruiter, they're being like a mentor, they're being like a family friend, talking to parents, talking to the family members when there's issues.
And with half the AFL's senior coaches on their books, including ousted Brad Scott and Brendan Bolton, they're having to fend off conflict of interest claims.
The conflict thing's rubbish. Our job is to get the best possible deal for our guys. If clubs make decisions that aren't made by us, our job is to seek out what they're looking for. Want someone experienced, no experience, big club, small club, what's the list like? And we'll analyse that with the coach and go, do you want to go for the job? Doesn't mean he'll get it.
Last year, Kelly's star agent Tom Petroro orchestrated the final day 8-club mega trade, which sent Jesse Hogan to Fremantle, Stephen May to Melbourne and draft pick 5 to Port Adelaide.
He is one of the best at understanding what everyone wants to do. The clubs ultimately sometimes are so stubborn and so set on what they think's right that they need every now and then, come on guys, get your head around this has got to work this way, otherwise it's not going to happen.
But away from the high stakes wheeling and dealing, there's the more human side of the job.
I think you've got to have a trusting relationship. I think you've got to be prepared to have strong conversations with the players.
Former Norwood coach and Port Adelaide football manager Peter Rode now represents 10 players, including Adelaide's Wayne Millerer, and makes a point of meeting them face to face every couple of weeks.
Any problems with the injury?
One.
Yeah.
Nah,
Do you have smacked it again?
it's pretty much been good.
Have any clubs come looking for it?
Nah, nothing.
No?
No one even like nothing.
No. I always say to players when I start out with them, if you want someone to be the chairman of your cheer squad, that's what your girlfriend or your grandmother's for, and your player manager is there to support you, but he's not necessarily there to always tell you what you want to hear.
And it's not pleasant. At times you've got to say to guys, you're finished, you're done, or it's coming to an end, or we can't get you a new home. You become very close with the guys, and sometimes that's hard conversations are the worst ones to have.
Players get drafted when they play their first game, when they have success. You don't really need a manager much then, but you need a manager when you get injured, when things aren't going very well, when you're not getting picked, when maybe you're getting delisted or you've got to change clubs. That's when you really need a manager, and you need a manager for the hard times, not necessarily for the good times.
For better and for worse, the player manager is here to stay.
With 2 vacancies available in the AFL coaching carousel, agents certainly have a busy few months ahead of them. This week on The Crows Show, we speak to the Coaches Association to find out how they look after those who are forced to start a new chapter. Make sure you tune in to Channel 7 tomorrow at 11:30 a.m. with Mark Bickley and Alana Smith. He's motor racing royalty in the United States and the most successful Australian drag racer of all time. But Ritchie Crampton still calls Adelaide home. And on a rare trip back to Australia, the boy from Morphett Vale shared some childhood memories with Footyplus and reflected on his remarkable career.
At the finish line stripe, it's going to be Ritchie Crampton, 3.884, 321 miles an hour. And Ritchie Crampton pedals his way to the win. out that number.
When a teenage Ritchie Crampton raced his old supercharged Holden down this Adelaide International Raceway strip in the mid-90s, he had no idea he was on the road to the big time.
I was a young punk kid and I was really just coming out here to do it and have fun.
But inspired by his father, Alan, Crampton soon realised he could mix it with the best.
The older I got, the more serious I started to take it, and we really started to get after it in my later teenage years.
Determined to forge a career in the industry that had become an all-consuming passion, he moved to America and shocked the racing world.
Ritchie Crampton, did you dare dream that as a rookie driver in this so-competitive class that you could be a U.S. Nationals champion?
Not in my wildest dreams, Gary. I was pretty nervous when I got that opportunity, and a lot of people were scratching their head as to why a kid from Adelaide was getting this great opportunity, but I think I've paid him off with getting the wins and doing what I needed to do.
An incredible drag race ends on an incredible Top Fuel final.
Crampton initially moved to the US as a mechanic, but is now Australia's most successful top fuel pilot, with 9 career wins on the NHRA circuit. A former Rookie of the Year who has been ranked as high as 3 in the world.
And Ritchie Crampton goes to the top.
But he still treasures a return to Adelaide. And while his teenage playground has seen better days, it still holds powerful memories.
These grandstands would be packed, and I used to sit up here and watch the legends of Australian drag racing go at it down here, so that's definitely what set the bug for me. So by the time I was 16, I was drag racing out here in an old car that my dad and I had put together, and the rest is history.
Spending time with his father at his childhood home is still one of the highlights of a trip back to Australia.
Bonding with him in the garage, building that race car, is something that I look back on that means the world to me.
And so is a visit to Glenelg Beach.
We'd come here after school and swim until it got dark, jump off the end of the jetty, sometimes go surfing when there was some good waves, so this place is pretty special to me.
But it would soon be back to business for this stunning South Australian success story, back to racing the fastest cars on the planet, from 0 to 530 in a tick over 3.5 seconds.
I gravitated toward drag racing just because of the sheer power, you know. That raw horsepower, that one and done, sudden death kind of racing is kind of what drew me in, and I love doing what I do now.
Down the drain strip they go, and it's Ritchie Crampton on a hole shot.
The Adelaide Crows Legacy eSports team has just welcomed its newest recruit. And coincidentally, Dylan O Mullen is a South Aussie from West Lakes. Footyplus caught up with the man known as Frosty to get an insight into life as a professional gamer.
It's almost a little bit lonely in some aspects, you know, because I am the only one here. It's like I'm an extinct species. And over here we see Frosty, the only South Australian Hearthstone player. What a magnificent one he is. Just look at him. So Hearthstone is a digital card game. I'm part of the Hearthstone Grandmasters system, and that is 48 of the best players in the entire world.
Let's talk about Flurry and Frosty. Do you know much about Frosty, Language Hacker?
I was just writing down names, you know, and I was just like, Frosty, and then I'm like, well, you know, what if we did the cool thing and we put like a capital S in there to try to spice things up, you know, like Frosty the Snowman. I'm like, all right, that looks pretty cool, but you know, like everybody uses like Frosty as a Y. What if we just put it as a double E instead, you know, something really crazy? While I was over in Taiwan for the Grandmasters Summit, I was talking to one of the casters there, and she said, compared to most of the other players, you're actually quite normal. All right, we'll scratch that one off the record there. Some of the misconceptions about gamers is that a lot of them are definitely shut-ins and that, you know, they don't get out and they don't do anything else. On average, I usually spend about 6 to 8 hours practicing Hearthstone. I actually get out and I get to do other things as well. I've got 2 dogs. Their names are Max and Lily, and I love them very much. Hey now, come on. You know, walking the dogs is, it's just a nice little refresher for what's about to come during the day. Come on, Max. You know, one of my jobs is a martial arts instructor after all. You would never sort of expect a professional gamer to be a martial arts instructor, let alone do all the sorts of amazing things that come with it. Legacy coming and picking me up was definitely one of the best things that could possibly happen to me. You know, I've worked several jobs while doing all this Hearthstone sort of stuff, and to actually have a way to sustain myself outside of just playing the game is a huge deal to me. Ta-da!
If you're a Crows fan, make sure you show your support and sign up as a free We Flyers One member. Join today at weflyers1.afc.com.au and stay on top of all the latest breaking news from the club. Every footy season there seems to be a fresh wave of umpiring controversy, and this year they've grappled with a host of new rules and interpretations, leaving umpires to receive more abuse and anger than ever before. And you would think this would cause some concern in the umpiring ranks. But recently Footyplus headed down to a training session to discover a resilient and positive bunch.
It's a dark and cold winter night in the city, but the atmosphere is unmistakably warm.
40, good work, guys.
I think if you ask any of these guys out here, guys and girls, what's the best part about umpiring, the first thing they always say is their mateship and the camaraderie that we have here.
There's a full complement of SANFL umpires, as well as boundary and goal umpires from the AFL.
Yeah, we've probably got about 100 out here at the moment.
They're big numbers, despite all of the abuse from players.
Thomas called a boundary umpire a cheat. Extremely apologetic for the way in which I acted, the words in which I used and how I spoke to umpire Barlow.
And fans.
A Carlton fan was evicted for calling an umpire, quote, a bald-headed flog.
What is more prevalent these days is social media, where everyone's got a voice and that voice can be heard out in the community. It's not just confined to the footy ground.
There's still no shortage of men and women who want to be umpires.
Especially over the last couple of years, we've had a lot of guys and girls come through to join the umpiring ranks. As soon as they get into umpiring, realise how much fun it is, and a great way to earn some cash as well, and then they stay. So yeah, it's lots coming on board.
One of those is Sam Morgan, an SANFL field umpire at just 21.
I enjoy the challenge. It's certainly different, you know, umpiring men, so I give you a bit of flack sometimes, asking where my mum is and if I got my library cards.
As you go up, obviously, to the higher levels at SANFL and AFL especially, there's going to be that, but really you don't hear a lot of it. It's just really crowd noise that you hear, so I think most people that get to the higher level doesn't faze them.
But the AFL is cracking down on umpire abuse as it tries to coax even more men and women into umpiring.
With interpretations of the rules, it certainly does open it up for spectators to want to question what we decide to do, but yeah, it's just one of the challenges that we have to deal with.
Often a thankless occupation, but a rewarding one in which mateship and teamwork are the driving forces.
I guess it's different to a footy team. You're not going out there and trying to win the game, but you go out there as a 3 on the weekend, and the teamwork is important because that makes the individual better. So if you're out there for yourself, you're not going to go too well because you let your mates down.
Each week on Footyplus, we take a look at something that caught our eye on social media. Pitch invaders have been a hot topic since the recent Champions League final in Madrid. But this video of a dog rushing onto the field to greet his master at a VFL game at Casey Fields is unlikely to draw the same level of controversy and outrage. Truly a man's best friend. Make sure you keep up to date on all the latest Crows news and behind-the-scenes action on afc.com.au, as well as Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Keep an eye out for us on Channel 7 and 7 Plus in the weeks ahead. Bye for now.